Hello, my name is Alessia COF, and today I'll be demonstrating how recycling prevents environmental issues. My proposition is imposing mandatory recycling laws will help reduce harmful emissions that are destroying our climate. I'll be proving how recycling will solve these three issues. 1. Landfills emit harmful gases that pose major health and global hazards. 2. The initiative for the public to actually recycle. And 3. Trash is discarded incorrectly. So to begin with, landfills emit harmful gases that pose major health and global hazards. According to Andrea Thompson, an associate editor at Climate Central, there is 1.1 billion tons of waste, and more than 40% of the world's garbage is burned in open piles. An estimated 40 to 50% of the garbage is made up by carbon by mass, which means that carbon dioxide is the major gas emitted by trash burning. Those emissions account for 5% of the total carbon dioxide emissions, and over 40% of the world gets rid of their trash that way. Recycling is a way that we can reduce this number. The Environmental Protection Agency estimates that 75% of American waste stream is recyclable, and we only recycle about 30% of it. Therefore, the burning of landfills include burning of recyclables such as plastic. This shows that if we give incentive to recycle it by making it mandatory, we can get close to 75% of waste recycled, not only minimize the size of landfills, but the fires that are taking place. 2. Adding on, recycling is a simple act that anyone can contribute to, but there is no initiative by the public to act on it. Some common excuses for non-recycling include, recycling is inconvenient. I don't have enough space in my home to recycle. If they paid me, I'd recycle. Recycling doesn't make a difference, so why do it? It's just too hard to do. According to the Environmental Protection Agency, the average American produces 4.4 pounds of garbage a day, or a total of 29 pounds per week, 1,600 pounds a year. These numbers add up, and everyone is responsible for global warming. Since everyone is affected by the issue, there should be an active role to help solve it. Over 87% of Americans have access to curbside or drop-off paper recycling programs, which shows that recycling is really accessible in the United States. According to Call to Recycle, most recycling is a home-based activity at 72%, with 46% utilizing curbside recycling and 26% with their own local drop-off facilities. And that's only with people who actually do recycle. As you can see, although curbside and drop-off places are available, a lot of people don't have the motivation or plan to do that because they either just do it in their home or not do it at all. And we need to spread the awareness and availability of these resources so that more people will be involved and we can create proactive change. In a survey conducted by Drew DeSilver, about 3 in 10 Americans say their local communities strongly encourage recycling, and about a fifth say that they don't encourage recycling at all, and the rest are in the middle. Having mandatory recycling will result in communities across the United States having a motive and the encouragement they need to recycle. According to Conserve Energy, if we recycled all newspapers, we could save over 250 million trees each year. And out of the whole world, we only have 3 trillion trees left. And in just 1 year, 250 million of those trees can be saved just by newspapers. What if we recycled all papers? Recycling creates a big change we need with simple acts before we can now reduce the damage we continuously create. Mandatory laws enforcing this will not only produce the amount of participation we need for big change, but it will set up a routine for families to recycle correctly. The same source also stated, Americans will use over 2.5 million plastic bottles every 30 minutes. Most of them will simply be thrown away rather than recycled. The number of everyday items that seem to not make a big deal in the moment actually do really add up. You may believe that you alone cannot create change, but as I said, every little thing adds up. So just even by putting the plastic bottle in a recycling bin instead of a regular one will create change as everyone in the world will add up. And the change I think will occur with mandatory recycling laws being enforced. And my third point is, furthermore, the levels of trash discarded incorrectly worldwide contributes immensely to environmental issues. Recycling incorrectly occurs when the material is contaminated or the right material is prepared the wrong way. Contamination occurs when people put things such as plastic bags in the glass-only bins instead of the plastic-only bins. And when things are created when they're contaminated, it's passed on to the new materials once it's recycled, and people don't even know that it's happening. A lot of these contaminated products are then pushed out into the environment when people litter, and it kind of deteriorates all the progress that we're trying to make. Waste not only occurs in air and land, but in our oceans. It has been estimated that plastic marine debris adversely affects at least 267 species globally. As debris accumulate, habitat structures may be altered as oxygen levels may be depleted and coral reef systems destroyed, leaving many aquatic lives in risk of extinction. In addition, when recyclables are discarded incorrectly, we have to use more energy to actually get these natural resources that we use. In today's society, natural resources are becoming really scarce due to the fact that we're using so much of it and we're not coming up with any alternative sources. So we just kind of keep pushing off finding these sources, and it will kind of leave our future generations with nothing. And recycling is any way that an average human can actually contribute to stopping this. According to Vanell, a science writer and ecologist on environmental challenges, recycled office paper saves 17 trees, 7,000 gallons of water, 463 gallons of oil, and 3 cubic yards of landfill space. Recycled plastic saves 16.3 barrels of oil, and recycled steel saves 1.8 barrels of oil and 4 cubic yards of landfills. Recycling may seem like a pain in the moment, but instead of just putting all of your trash into one bin, you can easily do simple acts such as just putting it into the correct bin, and the big change that we need for really big issues such as climate change and emissions will start to decrease. All in all, imposing mandatory recycling laws will help reduce harmful emissions that are destroying our climate, and I've proven this through my 3 points, which is landfills emit harmful gases that pose major health and global hazards, the initiative for the public to actually recycle is lacking, and trash is discarded incorrectly. Thank you.
Okay, the proposition's identified clearly, and there's a good preview for the most part. The controversy concerns the need for recycling and whether or not we're doing an adequate job. There's a little bit of information at the first part of the speech, in the first section, that talks about the absence of adequate recycling, the amount of waste that we produce, the amount that actually gets recycled, the opportunities that we're missing out on. I think there's you're conflating some of the numbers. Some of it's worldwide stuff, some of it's in the United States, and the idea that recycling would function in the same way and we'd be able to do it in all different parts of the world in the same way, I think is probably a little simplistic. There are probably more specific ways to address these issues in some parts of the world than in the United States. The United States, when you talk about curbside recycling, for instance, or mandatory recycling, it's probably a little bit more practical to suggest what some of those numbers would be and how that might work. This is almost a pseudo-policy topic. You are arguing, you did phrase it as a claim of fact, suggesting that if we did this, this would be the result. So it's a conditional kind of argument, which is fine. But the notion that mandatory recycling works is not really demonstrated. You just assume that it works, that we would get better results. All these people have all these excuses. You mentioned a whole long inventory of them on the second point. And where's the proof that mandatory recycling ever overcomes those kinds of things? Where has it worked in the past? Are people who are subject to mandatory recycling doing a better job? That's the section of the argument that I think is missing. You give lots of reasons why recycling would be a good idea. The environmental issues, there's an extensive discussion of what all the environmental issues are, and I don't think there's a dispute on some of them. Some of them there might be some argument about how important the waste issues are to climate change issues, for instance. That probably going to be discussed, as there are a variety of other sources of the greenhouse gases that might be more important to the issue of climate change than the recycling issue or the waste products that we're talking about here. But I'm back to the same question. Where's the demonstration that these things actually do work? You kind of are taking the assumption that, well, if everybody did everything perfectly, everything would be great in life. And I'm going, yeah, if, that's a big if. Where's the proof that any of this ever worked? And that's the thing that's missing in the argument. That's the main issue that I had with the argument. I don't, like I said, I don't think there's a lot of dispute about all of the environmental dangers that are we're going to be faced if waste gets disposed of improperly, or if it's like you talk about in large sections of the world, it's burned. I don't think you're going to find that that's true in the United States, but in large sections of the world, that's how we handle the waste, and that is in fact going to be a problem. Nobody's going to dispute that kind of thing. All right, thank you.